Hello, brother Rafi Sibang. Kumusta na? Nasaan ka lang? Sa bahay? Oh, okay. Nagtanggap mo ba yung mga email ko? Yung tungkol sa kung kailangan mong photographer sa mga real estate mo. Okay. Okay, pakiano lang kung meron kang time, kung may kailangan ka. Okay, brother, thank you.
है आप अपनी कन्वीनियंट से आएंगे वो आने तैयार कीजिए हम तो जा रहे हैं बेटा जय हम कहे आ गए अपना है तो आना है ना कि वो आएंगे ना तो सब कोई खास नहीं आया ना Harekrishna. Harekrishna. We're early.
Harekrishna.
Two Sundays now. In the future.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a good idea. Keep busy, huh? It's supposed to keep busy. If you come Tuesday nights, hang out with the devotees.
I got a problem.
What's that? Oh, yeah. What's the problem?
It's not like there's a lot of that's why I just both opposite. Now I'm confused.
Or,
Yeah.
Christians ain't controlling me, or?
Yeah, because the opinion of others is different. The opinion of others, the opinion of others are not controlled with one side.
Like on what topic?
I
Most
don't
times
know. I don't know what it's like.
Yeah. Like on what? So you can finish my
I like listening here because too much discussion.
discussion.
You just
Yeah, whatever.
you just accept what the
Yeah.
lecturer is doing.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever works best. You should do it.
I'll make it.
You don't have to. I mean, whatever works best for each one, that's fine.
And then I don't understand why. That also discourages me. I don't understand why some of my family go from orange to white, go to black.
That they need to do. Because they need to. Yeah. Why don't you just surrender and move to the down right now? Yeah, just give up everything, move to the down. Why don't you do that? You see what I mean? Because you need it. Because if you're not at that level, and brahmacharya Prabhupada, it says right in the Vedic that brahmacharya is two things. Someone can stay brahmacharya, but most people, it's a training period and then they get married.
I'm impressed with them as well. Let's really talk about being with sacrifice because everything very dedicated and everything. And suddenly they go up.
But they're still dedicated. Prabhupada said that, there's different ashrams in brahmacharya.
That is why I want to talk to them. The only thing
There's no difference.
that's why I think it is don't understand. That's why
Uh-huh.
the only thing you need to do is to sacrifice and observe.
And that's what do you need to what? What do you need? I don't understand. What do you need? Okay. Well, if you don't, you don't. But you're going to do because you are. Because some people, they're interested. But just like when you just move to the road, you need the situation you need.
Rajiv, will you bring charger? You saw our song?
Yes.
Huh? It is like I'm playing. Can you bring the charger from mobile?
Yes, I can.
Car charger? This mobile charger?
Yes.
Bring the charger.
Yes.
So go from here.
It's a student, and most people get married after. But some people, they never get married out. It's not that every house does. All the ashrams, missionaries, no, 16.
I promise you.
How can you off that? Truly blessed me. You stayed for a while? She's very kind to me. You'll be here for the picnic, huh?
Yeah.
That's too cool. That's nice. Want to talk more now? Want to talk more now?
Yes, I promise you.
Are you gonna lead a kirtan?
I guess so, yeah. Let me just,
I'm gonna chat with you.
okay, yeah, let me just, pretend I'm lead to kirtan.
Which day is this? It's the 8th of October. We have the fire at the boat festival. So we have to do that.
What time is ready for Cámara Segunda y no the afternoon? It's big.
Yeah, 'cause
It's not doing
it's
work.
about 2.
Oh, well,
I mean, we
if I
started
finish by 5, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that because we burn Ravana.
Yeah, if I leave by 5 from
Okay.
there, it's okay.
And then we'll do we do the boat festival, we offer flowers, and we do.
Yeah, I did one.
Oh, you did that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good to know.
What is the fire? Do you want to do the fire? The coma or?
We'll start the boat about 2 or something.
Oh, okay.
1:32-ish, like that.
Yeah.
And get as many in as you can, so make them as fast as you can, but not, whatever you feel.
Yeah.
Let me give it to you.
I do every 20
You only get like 2, Cool. Oh, you did each one.
2.
Let me get
Maybe like a 4 or 5.
Yeah, that's what we need, because then more donations come.
Okay, where is October 8th, Saturday? Okay, if any problem, I'll let you know. I think just in case.
Thank you so much.
Krishna Krishna Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Krishna Krishna Namaste
Krishna,
Hare Now feel free to sit, stand, or bow down as you like. Now we should talk for a moment, hopefully we're not tired. Ashtotra Shabda Shri Shalai, my grace, A.C. Bhakti, Swami Guru Jai. Jai Vishnu Karpam, Musa Acharya, Ashtotra Shabda Shri Shalai, my grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur, Prem Sikaro Shri Krishna, Shri Advaita Siddhanta Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopalokanath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamamai Ki Jai Tulsi Mangalam Ki Jai Bhakti Dev Ki Jai Samveta Bhakti Lord Ki Jai All glories to SanDiego. Hare Krishna. All glories to SanDiego. Hare Krishna. All glories to SanDiego. Hare Krishna. All glories to Namaste Narasimhaya.
Hi, harekrishna everybody, welcome. Welcome to today's Krishna Fest Sunday Feast. So now, the point of our program, we'll have a speaker here tonight. So today who's speaking, his name is His Holiness Bhakti Ananda Maharaj. So Maharaj has been practicing Krishna consciousness for about 20 years or so. He's been giving discourses for a while. So everyone can give their kind of attention to him and he'll enlighten us with transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Volume, please. You want to start those?
So I will just take literally 1 to 2 minutes to sing one more song. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya I will take another minute to offer respects and prayers to the spiritual teachers. Om Dhyanatimirandasya Dhyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Gurave Namaha Mukhaṁ karoti vācālaṁ bhangum langate girim yat kripatamaham bhante Shri Gurum Dinadharanam Panchakam kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavabhyo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
And one more sip of water. So it would be great if everyone in all places at all times could agree on things, but fortunately or unfortunately the reality is nothing like it. People disagree all the time, and sometimes people strongly disagree, and as they disagree it can get interesting. Even right now, I'm just a political. I'm obviously I'm a monk, so even though I have some interest in public social life, of course I have great interest in public social life, but not enough to participate in politics. But even I hear and pick up a few things here and there as a monk. So I don't think we have ever in the history, or maybe, at least not in recent history that I can remember, let's say in the last 20 years, that American politics have been so tense. The polar opposites are so different. So, nevertheless, that's a detail. But the principle here is that humans have been almost like I would not call it a curse, because whatever is real for me ultimately is good. To a theist, ultimately everything that is real ultimately is good. But it appears to be a curse, the curse of subjectivity, namely that we perceive this world, each of us from our own position. I can only try to assume what the world looks like from your position, and I might be able to figure out a little something. But, I will never experience the world the way you experience it, because I'm not you. And other way around. So in this way, we're all sort of cursed to see the world from our own perspective. And so as we look at this world from our own perspective, sometimes the ripples of our interests and activities collide. And then there's tension. So, opening thought shall be also the closing thought. So I will build my case towards it in the next 20 or so minutes. It is interesting, probably there was never as exciting times in the world, and specifically in Europe, as it was during not the first wave of industrial revolution, but the second wave of industrial revolution. Many people nowadays cannot imagine the world without a cell phone. Heck, most people can't even imagine the world without a smartphone. But try to imagine a world without machines. Like, no machines. Very, very different world. So there was a first wave of industrial revolution where people started to produce things, serially produce things. And not to go into details, but this got people excited because now they could increase their production. And so as the production was increasing of everything, foods, fabric, cloth, etc., etc., people are thinking, wow, we're so smart, this is really good. And so they put their minds to it. And so they started to think how to produce more efficiently and with better quality. And so this brought about the second wave of industrial revolution, where people started to make machines, which in turn made other machines. This is why England emerged out of Europe, actually in the world, emerged as a superpower. Just like America nowadays is a superpower. Back then it was England. Oops, I almost said something. Okay, I won't say it. Emerged as why? Because they had machines, whereas the rest of the world did not have machines. So they went all over the world, conquering the world, literally conquering and torturing and plundering and colonizing the world as if that was their birthright. But that right came to them because they had machines. And so, in many ways, this was very exciting times in Europe. People were discovering new things, and production was increasing and increasing and increasing. It was very exciting. Of course, there was a lot of trouble also, because certain people who did not industrialize or tried to resist the industrialization, it was very painful for them. It was very painful. As a matter of fact, in England, I forget what did they call them. People went around and burned these factories down.
Arsonists?
Luddites.
What was-
Luddites.
Correct. Thank you. How did they get that name? By a name of a fellow, right?
Name of a fellow, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It was very painful. It was literally extinguishing their existence, and it was a battle for survival. And so, but nevertheless, besides these few glitches, these people were very, very excited. And what's interesting, that from the perspective of industrial revolution, and nowadays we're enjoying the fruits of industrial revolution big time, there's certain societies which are considered primitive. Specifically, economy or means of production that is described as hunters and gatherers, which is considered the most primitive form of economy. Why? Because it takes a tremendous amount of time to produce anything. Not too long ago, I was in Siberia. About a month ago, I was in Siberia, a very remote place. Siberia, of course, is huge. If someone tells you they were in Siberia, they didn't tell you anything. That's such a vast area. But I was in some really, really remote place, super remote place. And there I saw a table. I was hosted by a family, and in their home they had a table which husband and wife made together. And it took them a couple of months to make it. For something nowadays, to take a couple of months to make would cost, I don't know, super fortune. It takes, what, 6 hours to make a car, right? Something like that? No one here makes cars. In your spare time. But I think it takes about 6 hours to make a car, and then it takes another 20 minutes to make every additional, or something like that, or 4 or 5, I don't know, but something like that. And yet, how much does a car cost? Now, imagine something that takes 2 months to make. So this kind of economy is considered primitive because it takes a great amount of effort to produce anything. And so hunters and gatherers, they had to endeavor really, really, really hard to produce anything. Even for their own food, they had to struggle a lot to get just enough to survive. Yet, interesting fact is that an average work day of a hunter and hunter/gatherer average work day is 1 to 3 hours. Whereas in modern times, average work day is 8. That's bare minimum. That's a super duper bare minimum. And so this is interesting because on one hand we have this group of people who are producing very efficiently, super efficiently, like several thousand times fold, more, better. They're more efficacious, several thousand times more efficacious than the hunters and gatherers. And yet we work more. So something has increased there.
Needs are more now.
Not the needs. Needs are always the same. The wants. But yeah, thank you. The wants have increased tremendously. Now, but besides that, that's just a side point. That's not the main point I wanted to make. But it is an important point. In other words, the wants of a modern human have increased several thousand times 3-fold over what we call primitive people. So in other words, wants are huge these days. Huge. Now, there's one very specific thing, and this is probably, I would say, in my estimation, and I definitely heard this from my own spiritual master teacher, that this is probably the worst thing that happened there at that time. And this is as people were caught up in the frenzy of production, in the frenzy of innovation. It's hard to imagine how exciting the times those were in Europe. So people got caught up in the frenzy of innovation and production. But none of them thought, hardly, I'm sure someone thought, but generally people did not think, where does this lead to? They were simply caught up in the frenzy of innovation and production. So one thing that happened there, it's not that it never existed, but specifically at this time it was really amplified, like seriously amplified. And what is this? This is humans' interest. Human interest in pleasure over truth. In pleasure over knowledge. In pleasure over wisdom. Simply being caught up in frenzy of production, innovation, and of course consumption. Pleasure has replaced the truth. And you see, if we fast forward to nowadays, what is the position of, let's say, philosophy department at any school? That's like every school has to have a special program to convince parents, to convince their children to try to pursue philosophy as their major. It's a dying department. Okay, I have to be careful how I say this because I don't want to disturb anyone, but these are some of the symptoms of modern times. Religion, for example, like philosophy, is largely evaluated not on the merit of knowledge and wisdom, but it's largely evaluated on the merit of pleasure. If it feels good, then it's good for you. It's very good for you. The value of it is not understood on the basis of truth and wisdom. Philosophy and religion, which are two systems of knowledge, one system is for acquisition of for acquisition of knowledge that could be rationally approached. and the other one transcendentally. In other words, which goes even beyond the capabilities of mind and intellect. And these have been reduced to Disneyland. As a matter of fact, we have Disneyland, which is, I never went there, but even when my parents wanted to take me. Donald Duck does not exist, neither any of those ducks and rats and whatever else is in there. But this complete lie, which has nothing to do with anything, has become so important, and there's so many such things which have become very important. For example, since the dawn of creation, sophisticated civilizations have been concerned with the edification of their members. To edify means to elevate, to make fine. So every society since the dawn, every sophisticated society since the dawn of creation has been concerned with elevating, edifying its members. And for example, in modern times, to humans it's much more important to have the freedom to walk around naked than to edify. There's nothing wrong with the human body is as natural gets. Is very natural. But the way one human unit interacts, but what happens to one human unit when it bumps into another human unit without clothes is a whole other story. The lowest of urges tend to be provoked, which do not lead to edification, actually lead to things coming down to vulgar platform. So all this was, and the list goes on and on and on. I made a list here, but I don't want to disturb anyone here in the audience. There are many more examples in modern society which indicate that to a modern human, pleasure is way more important than truth or wisdom. And this way was powerfully initiated by the Industrial Revolution. And now what's interesting, when those people were being caught up in the frenzy of invention, production, consumption, hardly anyone thought, oh, where will this lead, perhaps? So, Srila Prabhupada described the modern society, which is largely product of, or aftermath of Industrial Revolution. He called it the headless body. Body without a head. Why a body without a head?
Without thinking.
Yeah, correct. Because body can, not too long ago, I shot a short film, never published it, waiting for someone to put music to it. There are any musicians here who like to compose music for my film, and we can talk after. The film shows a young person who grabs a ladder and sets the ladder on the wall. And then he climbs up and down this ladder several times, enjoying himself, having an awesome time jumping up and down the ladder. Then finally he stops and he climbs up to the top of this wall, and then he looks left, looks right, looks straight, and he says, "Oh my goodness, wrong wall." So similarly, modern society is, not in every ways, but in many ways, it's like this. We're very good at doing stuff. We make phones that are very smart and very thin, and we invent stuff, blah blah blah. But what is the purpose of life? What's the purpose in life? What's the purpose of life? Huge difference between the two. Some other time about that. This is a matter of philosophical quest. instead of subordinating reality to our pleasure, doesn't it make more sense to subordinate pleasure to that which actually is real ultimately, the ultimate nature of reality? So like this, we're very good at climbing up and down the ladder, but never evaluating which wall is worth climbing. So Srila Prabhupada described the modern world to be largely like a headless body, and wanted this movement to attract and create and initiate interest amongst people who would function as the head of the body. That at least there's some number of people, there is lots of people who think about this, but not enough, I'd say, to function as the head of the body. And now I can't remember where I read this, but I read it a few months ago, and then if I could remember where I got it from, I would credit the author, but I cannot, so whoever the author is, please forgive me. Said, quote, "Improved means to an unimproved end." Follow? Improved means to an unimproved end. Just being excellent and doing things. But for what end? So, okay. Brace yourselves, I'm about to read something intense. This is from Srila Prabhupada. This does not come from a conversation that he had. This is not coming from a letter that he wrote to one single person. This comes from a book that he wrote, which he wanted to be published, printed, and distributed by billions. So, and he uses a bit of a strong language here, but it just goes to show it's good to look at things from an alternative point of view. In other words, the point is not to merely agitate, but the point is to agitate some thinking. To agitate means to set into motion. So every agitation is not necessarily an unpleasant thing. So those of you who care, Prabhupada wrote this in the 9th canto, 24th chapter, 59th verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the quote goes as follows. Demons are very much interested in advancing a plan by which people will labor hard like cats, dogs, and hogs. But Krishna's devotees want to teach Krishna consciousness so that people will be satisfied with plain living and spiritual, Krishna conscious advancement. I'll read this again if you missed it. In other words, this is the vision Srila Prabhupada had for this movement. And he wanted to collaborate with other movements who are interested in the same goal. Here it goes again. Demons are very much interested in advancing a plan by which people will labor hard like cats, dogs, and hogs. But Krishna's devotees want to teach Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, so that people will be satisfied with plain living and Krishna conscious advancement. In other words, he's saying that if people are interested in spiritual advancement, then those giant wants will naturally reduce. And so as they naturally reduce, the hard work that we're unnecessarily putting in modern economy also reduces. Although demons have created many plans for industry and hard labor so that people will work day and night like animals, this is not the purpose of civilization. In other words, he doesn't think that's very civilized. It's just hard work. Such endeavors are jagato ahitaha. That is, they are meant for the misfortune of the people in general. Kshayaya, that's a Sanskrit term. such activities lead to annihilation. Anyone who understands the purpose of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, should seriously understand the importance of the Krishna consciousness movement and seriously take part in it. One should not endeavor for ugra karma, another Sanskrit term, or unnecessary work simply for sensual gratification. So what Srila Prabhupada did here, and in many other places, he actually put out a call for revolution. We can't be complaining about being worked to death and having unlimited wants. But these unlimited wants they naturally decrease as our interest in spiritual life, as our spiritual interests increase. This is something that takes place naturally, organically, and painlessly. So, that was point number one. Point number two, and then comparison. When it comes to, and this will be really quick, when it comes to moral reason, which is a technical term, to morally reason means basically to reason as to what is good and what is bad. So every time we think about something, whether it is good or bad, what we're doing, we're morally reasoning. That's called, technical term is moral reasoning. And so there are several different, I hope it's not from work. There are several different philosophies when it comes to moral reasoning, and I will just contrast two, just so I can make my point. One is called deontology, and the other one is called consequentialism. Deontology states that the value of an act is found in the act itself. Moral value of an act is found in the act itself. So, for example, such a person would say that lying is always bad or always good. Cannot be sometimes good, sometimes bad. This is called deontology. I'm just giving you an example. That lying is or always good or always bad. That's what deontology claims. In other words, that the value of an act is found within the act itself. Whereas the consequentialism states that the value of an act is understood by the consequences of the act. In other words, you do something and then you see what the consequences are. And so by seeing the consequences, then you can see what was the value of your act. And this makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes.
Anyone against? All right. So, now, what's interesting, in Krishna consciousness, we find representation of both. Sometimes we find, like one statement by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, perform your duty, equipoise, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. In other words, it does not matter what the consequences or the results of your activity are going to be. You should just do it because it's your duty. This is called deontology. And there's tremendous value to this. And this act would, in Krishna's thinking, would be considered a good act. Later on, however, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says, one who performs their duty without consideration of the results of their activities is acting in the mode of darkness. In other words, not a good, like dark meaning ignorant. Not a very good way of acting. So, it's interesting that Krishna combines both. Now one question to you, and then that will bring us almost to the end. The question is, there are two big problems with consequentialism. Right? The consequentialism is moral reasoning which tells us that the value of an act is understood by the consequences or the results of the act. Now, Can someone think of a problem, at least one, hopefully two, with consequentialism? Yes.
If you do it first and get a bad result, it's too late to take it back.
No, in terms of being able to evaluate, in terms of being able to morally reason.
More. I was going to say like stealing?
No.
Oh,
Okay, again, the question. In terms of moral reasoning is you're trying to discern good from bad. Okay, so consequentialism as a system has an issue. And the system is, yes?
Animal research. Animal research.
Any more?
Animal research.
Animal research. That's a detail, but in principle, there's something troubling with this system.
I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but I'm thinking, first of all, it's fact specific. So things are you're gonna have different consequences in different situations, and sometimes you have multiple consequences.
Very good, thank you. You've been my best lecture buddy tonight. I'll just put it very simply. In other words, it is hard to say what the consequences are going to be. First of all, it is hard to say what the consequences are going to be. And then second, this is 1A, and 1B is God knows what the ultimate consequence is going to be. Because every action has a reaction, which has a reaction, which has a reaction, and goes on. So how to tell what the ultimate reaction is going to be? What is going to be the ultimate consequence? Very difficult to tell. And this is one of the major reasons why people fight. No, we should do it like this. No, we should definitely do it like this. Because if you do it like that, it'll go that way. No, if you do it like that, it'll go that way. What is the other problem? I know this is the worst time for philosophy evening, but morning session would have been way sharper. There's one more problem with consequentialism.
The judgment of the consequence. What may be good for you may be bad for me.
Very good, excellent. Thanks so much. That was the number 2. In other words, who's to tell what is actually good? Like some people think it's freedom to take off clothes and walk around in public naked. Other people don't think so. So who's right? How do we know what actually is good? These are huge problems which make people fight. But at least to go back to Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness as a spiritual or religious system therefore teaches 2 things: deontology and consequentialism at the same time. In other words, just like with this industrial revolution, I mean, who could ever have imagined the modern world and its troubles? I mean, I can just, every time they speak about artificial intelligence and robots, my blood freezes. God knows where will that go? Most people thought that the Industrial Revolution is an amazing thing. To me, it's not a good thing at all. Now, in terms of, ultimately, in terms of evaluating what is good, what is bad, what is wanted, within Krishna consciousness, there is a system to be followed. there's a system to be followed. And this system is called, well, it's got different names, but at least among devotees, there are technical terms like Shabda Brahman, etc., etc. But devotees basically boil it down to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Guru means the spiritual master, the spiritual teacher. Sadhu means a holy person. And the Shastra means Krishna's instructions in terms of scriptures. Krishna's instructions in terms of scriptures. And now the sadhu, the saintly person, the holy person, and the guru, the spiritual teacher, they basically are considered holy only because they teach that which is taught in the scripture. So in Krishna consciousness, the system is to first of all be guided by not our own speculations, but be guided by Krishna's instructions. That is deontology. In other words, if Krishna said there should be varnashrama, there should be, if you don't know the terms, doesn't matter. But Krishna said so many different things. Then we ought not to speculate. We just, for those of us who are within the tradition, we go about and do it. Now, if we were to leave this merely deontology, which some religious people do, then you end up with religious fanatics. And in all honesty, I live in a spiritual community, religious community, and there's hardly anything that scares me more than religious fanatics. Another thing that freezes my blood. Bhagavad Gita is a very, very, very impressive philosophical work. So if you don't have a copy, I highly recommend you get one. They're available for the discount price. Where Krishna really finally balances all of these elements. And then, therefore, later in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, but even when you do this deontology stuff, then you still have to, within the parameters given by Krishna's instructions, you should still use your intelligence to try to see what the consequences of your acts are going to be. And so this is Krishna's recommendation. Now, overall, there is, and I will conclude here. This also leaves us with, at least in my mind, all of this was initiated by a statement in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also another book worth having. In the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's got 12 cantos, but in the first canto there's a description how Krishna came to this world and then did stuff, taught stuff, and then he left. After he left, the Bhagavatam says, Krishna Swadamo Pagate Dharma Dhyana Divisaha Kaunashtadrisham Esha Puranarka Vinoditaha. Says that, first of all, first thing it says, that now that Krishna has gone from this planet has been submerged in the darkness of ignorance. And I can clearly see this, with as much time as I want to spend merely mentally speculating, without this kind of authoritative, superior guidance by Krishna, I'm lost. And I personally think, and this is the statement by the Srimad Bhagavatam, that not only am I lost, but the civilization is also lost. That civilization is lost. But Then the second, Kalau Nashtam Trishamesha, but in this dark age, now that Krishna has departed, right? This dark age, there's something that's going to give light instead of Krishna. And this is considered Krishna's literary incarnation. And this is Krishna's instructions in the form of this book, Srimad Bhagavatam. How many of you have Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam? Like possessing? Okay, take down the names of those who don't. No, seriously, this is one of those books you buy and then you have it for generations, and you read. This is one. This is a book I've been daily reading now for since 1983. That's how many years?
33
years. Really? Oh, wow. Wow, time flies. Yeah, it was... No, can't be that. No, 1988. It was 1988 when they got it. 28. So, yeah, that sounds... Still funny, but that's a book I read seriously every day. Like that's a book I read every day. Please slowly. And so Krishna said, and so this is the book. This is literally claims to be the book itself, and Krishna also claims this book to be the incarnation of Krishna. In other words, when the light of Krishna is gone, this is the book that will give people this information. And then, of course, I'm not one of those people who say you got to read this book or off you go. But the point is that the thing is brilliant, and if you read it, you can see that for yourself. Of course, we're all culturally conditioned to different extents, and certain things may not quite appeal to us right away. As I remember, I was a beach boy when I was just surfing all day. And I got the book, and certain things I thought were quite cool, and other things I thought, what in the world? But I gave it a chance. And because I was impressed by the things that did make sense to me. And now I think that the Industrial Revolution was a bad move. Yeah, as Srila Prabhupada says, humans are not meant to work hard for what? Maintenance. It's not necessary. Human energy is so valuable, so creative, and so beautiful. There are all kinds of wonderful things could be done with it instead of producing stuff we don't need. No one knew we needed smartphones until someone invented them. That means we don't need them. Just one example. There's a billion other things. But had the humanity listened to Krishna, they wouldn't have gotten caught in the frenzy of invention, production, and consumption. A frenzy that seems not to be losing momentum. So the conclusion is, without Krishna, without God, humanity is lost. Thank you. Okay, I hope I didn't really overcomplicate that one. But are there any questions or comments? Looks like we have. Yes.
Just a couple things. One, it was Thoreau who said the quote from the
really?
book Walden. Got that from my smartphone.
I use it too, please. I didn't mean to stigmatize you, so I apologize if I've done that.
Two more little things. One, if it weren't for the Industrial Revolution, which I have mixed feelings about all the time as well, but we wouldn't be here right now. Certainly not you, because you were from Czechoslovakia, you wouldn't have ever gotten here. So I'm kind of glad on that sense. Aside from that,
you would not have a need for me. I win.
But then the other thing, one of the other things, now this is kind of taking what you were saying and seeing if I understand it correctly, using a different concept. you were talking about how we have, supplanted knowledge for pleasure. Would you agree, or am I correct in, because I make this assumption whenever I hear people say, well, would you rather be right or happy? Well, being right makes me happy. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Being right makes me happy, and if I forfeit, yes, I know I'm right, and if I just all right, I'd rather be happy, I'm lying, and it doesn't make me happy. So it's almost, by looking for knowledge, that is the happiness there, that the other is really not happiness. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I agree with you. We're on the same page with that one. True, that's why I said initially, I said that whatever is real to me is good.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, we're happiness-seeking beings. Without happiness, oh my goodness, we disintegrate. So ultimately, speaking from experience, that ultimately, absolute truth is the ultimate truth that never changes, that does not succumb to the circumstances. That's called absolute truth. The absolute truth is absolutely beautiful and produces absolute happiness. For example, Srila Prabhupada once, he gave a lecture, the founder of this, the Acharya of this movement. He gave a lecture, and then at the end of the lecture, a person asked a question on behalf of someone else. And he called that other person a devotee. And he says, there's this devotee who's not happy. And Prabhupada cut him off, didn't let him finish the question. He says, he's a devotee and he's not happy? Then he's not a devotee. So, ultimate nature of reality is such that is happiness inducing. But there's a seduction of truth which takes one away. There's seduction of pleasure which takes one away from truth and ultimately to pain. Like, for example, intense physical pleasures, intense sensual pleasures always feel amazing in the beginning only, and always lead to a horrible place. Pick any intense sensual pleasure. So when we speak of pleasure replacing truth, at least for me, that's what I was thinking of. But ultimately, truth is happiness producing, inducing, etc. Okay, number one, and then over here afterwards.
Actually, I was just wondering, when we talk happiness, what's happiness? And is it relative terms? For me,
Could you say that again?
what is happiness? And is it relative terminology?
Relative term.
Yeah. For some people, I'm not happy enough, right? Some people say, is it relative, I'm more happier, or something like that?
Happiness is, just for the sake of time, happiness is the ultimate natural position of the living being. In other words, that is the position that constitutes the goal of life rather than the goal in life. Goal in life is something you achieve and becomes irrelevant, becomes obsolete, and then you seek another goal. Goal of life is not something that you can manufacture. That is we're hardwired to exist a certain way, mentally, physically, spiritually, in every way. When we exist in that capacity, we experience ultimate harmony, which we call happiness. Is that okay? If it's not complete happiness, then we're not talking about absolute happiness. That means we have not discovered the absolute truth, neither do you live, not you or whoever that person is, and neither does that person live according to that absolute truth. The purpose of religion or spiritual quest, philosophical quest, is to find the absolute truth and align ourselves with it. so we can experience this absolute harmony and happiness. Okay.
Just briefly, it was also my understanding from the Bhagavad Gita that, speaking from a consequentialist point of view, sort of the way around all of that and having to make those moral assessments that you're referring to is by surrender to Krishna. Because in that way, we're basically forfeiting our karma, surrendering our karma over as well, and acting as part and parcel of Krishna. So the consequences of him to begin with. So that's sort of my understanding when I'm approaching this philosophy. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, that is true. However, when you say surrender to Krishna, the term Krishna uses is prapad or prapadyate, which pada means what? Foot. Prapad means, what? You speak Hindi, don't you? That's what I was looking at just now. Prapad literally means to approach, step forward. In other words, by coming closer to Krishna, you have to become Krishna-ized. In other words, you have to become like Krishna, pure like Krishna, selfless like Krishna, loving like Krishna, etc., etc. That's what it means. And to surrender to Krishna, we're not talking about some switching off of our brain or tossing out the consequentialist system out of our minds. No, throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is urging Arjuna to think. And in no point did Krishna tell to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, you have to act like this. But he's telling, look, if you do like this, then this will be the result. And if you do like that, then this will be the result. And if you don't do this, then that will be the result. Now, what do you want to do? I recommend this. But Krishna is like every good parent is trying to make Arjuna an adult. An adult in a moral sense, in a spiritual sense, that he is not like a child depending on the decisions of the parents. In other words, we're expected to spiritually and morally grow to the point that we ourselves can tell right from wrong, based on the guidance from Krishna. And when we act on behalf of Krishna, should I? Because I don't want to give an incomplete picture. But acting on behalf of Krishna, that's just an introduction into spiritual life. That's a beginning of relationship with God. But ultimately, what Krishna is interested in is bhakti, which means love and devotion. In other words, that we act for the pleasure of Krishna, for the benefit of all souls, and instead of selfish activities. Because when we act selfishly, then we produce what is called karma. We always produce karma, but certain karma is a spiritual, non-binding reaction, which is called the pleasure of Krishna and pure souls. And the nasty karma, which is the standard understanding of the term karma, is the result of a selfishness. So I want to do this. That's how that works. Is that okay? Okay, I have to end here, and if there are any other questions or comments, you can try to catch me afterwards. Okay, thank you.
Everybody please rise, place their mats on the back there. We'll have kirtan for another 10 minutes or so, and we'll serve out the dinner. Harekrishna.
Oh,
You're all set.
Hare Krishna,